Okay, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're joining from. Welcome to everyone. My name is Tushima, and with me in the hosting room, also leading this event, are Nilima and Sindhu. We are all coaches. We're all members of the ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter Board. Please do continue to introduce yourself by entering your name and location in the chat box if you haven't done so already, for the purpose of introducing yourself to the group. For CCUs, we will post a claim form link towards the end of the session, so you need not worry about that. While we're in the panel discussion, we'll request you to be on mute and keep videos off just to conserve bandwidth, but we will have plenty of time for Q&A and interactions later on. So stay put for that. So we are rounding off this 25th International Coaching Week with this very specially curated panel discussion for you. It's centered around the overall theme of exploring your potential. And that's what our panel discussion is about today, exploring your potential with the power of coaching. So to share their views and stories on this, we have an equally powerful panel. And we are very pleased that they accepted our invite to speak and interact with us today. I have the fortune of introducing and moderating our panel. And I'm going to introduce our panelists. So first, I'd like to welcome Kaurabi Roy. Kaurabi considers herself an ardent learner. That's how she described herself. And she believes that she has found her ikigai in learning and organization development. So 17 plus years of experience in LNOD. Kaurabi is currently leading the LNOD function as Associate Vice President with AXA. Kaurabi has very rich experience in the space of cultural transformation, leadership development, learning operations, and believes in creating a coaching culture at the workplace. She's a certified coach herself from Coaching Lighthouse. She's an NLP practitioner, a certified DDI facilitator, and a test of English as foreign language certified professional. Kaurabi, welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Tushima. My pleasure.
Okay, next I would like to welcome and introduce to you Praveen Menon. Praveen is the CHRO at India First Life Insurance Company. Praveen's experience in his domain is truly rich and expansive. So in his earlier stints prior to joining India First Life, he has worked with Aditya Birla Group, Axis Bank, AC Nielsen, IDBI Federal Life Insurance, Citibanks, and HSBC. A plethora of experience across organization. Praveen is credited to have fueled the evolution of the employee journey or life cycle through a variety of people practices aligned with business goals. And since 2015, in his current organization, he has been deeply focused on cultivating an ecosystem that is empowered and meritocratic, receptive to upskilling and holistic development. So you can see how Praveen is one of the most key persons to talk to us about potential and how you really nurture that in the workplace. Praveen is also an active thought leader. He continues to lend his perspectives on people management at eminent forums and different academic institutions across India. He's an alumnus of the Wellington Institute of Management, Nasi Monji Institute of Management, and Tata Institute of Social Sciences. He has a business management degree, MBA in finance, and a post-graduation in advanced human resources. Praveen has also been the recipient of the TAPI Young HR Leader Award for 2020. Praveen, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tushima. I'm looking forward to today's discussion in the august company of the panel, as well as everybody there. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Our third panelist and a dear member of our own ICF Mumbai Charter Chapter, I welcome Venkatadri Ranganathan. Venkatadri has been with Tata Chemicals for about 19 years now, and he's the Chief Commercial Officer at Tata Chemicals since April 2022. He has worked across leadership roles at the organization. He has been COO of the nutrition science business, he served as the Chief Innovation and Digital Officer in Tata Chemicals. Prior to this, he was Chief Operating Officer at Rallis India. For the first 13 years of his career, Venkatadri was with Hindustan Lever. He joined there as a management trainee, and he spent 13 years with them across functions. Venkatadri has a mechanical engineering degree from VJTI Mumbai, a PGDM from IIM Lucknow, where he secured the gold medal. He's a credentialed ICF MCC coach, and Venkatadri's contribution to the industry has been consistent and long-standing. He serves on 3 different CII councils, as well as on the Government of India's Technology Information Forecasting and Assessment Council. He's also an advising committee member at Wellinker's PGDM Rural Management Program. He's very passionate about rural management, marketing, India's digital story and growth, agriculture. He loves coaching, teaching, and mentoring. Venkatadri, welcome and thank you so much. You are on home ground today.
Thank you, Tushima. Thanks a lot for to you and to ICF Mumbai for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts and also learn from the August panel that we have here. Thank you, Tushima.
Thanks. I have one final entity to introduce to the panel, and that's our fabulous audience. So, when we did our preparatory discussion, Kaurabi, Praveen, and Venkatadri, I did tell you about what kind of audience we typically have. And I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge that in every session, the quality and the value of the conversation is enhanced because of the insightful and imaginative questions, comments, and sharing that our audience brings in. And today, too, we hope to see them in action. Many here have volunteered with the chapter. Some here have written for us, others have spoken in our sessions. So it really promises to be a very rich discussion. Okay, with that, we're going to segue into our actual panel discussion. Please keep your questions and comments coming in the chat box, and we'll pick them up as and when we can, or towards the end in one final Q&A session. So my opening question, which is for all the panelists, and you can take them one by one, is, in what way has coaching been part of your life? So can you share your own personal story of how coaching has impacted your personal or professional growth? So can I request Praveen to share first? Praveen.
Sure, Tushima. See, if you ask me about my experience, I can tell you that I've been coached. At some point in time, I had a coach who actually coached me. Now I'm a part of an ecosystem which actually drives the modern day people practices. And what I've done is that I've actually introduced coaching in the company. And, of course, to begin with, it was slightly not that easy because it is still in many an organization, it will be still a primitive concept, if I were to put it that way. But of course, it is catching up speed now. So when I actually introduced this a few years back, it was something that I had to start from the scratch. So my experience goes with both the side of the story or both sides of the coin, wherein, as I mentioned, I've been coached. I created the ecosystem so that the coach and coachee relationship can exist in the company. And the experience has been quite enriching. Till you actually find out what a coach does to you, any amount of information that you garner, be it through read, be it through any information that flows into you, you will not be able to really appreciate that what coaching brings onto the table. So I have gone through that. So my experience actually speaks volumes of what it did to me as a professional, because I was in that cusp of actually moving from, let's assume, in a middle management to a senior management role. And there was a need for me to kind of take a step back, introspect, and see how I take forward the career journey. And when I actually look back at it, the same possibly will be applicable to all the professionals. So if, in some manner, if the coaching is getting introduced in the system, so I think most of the people will start getting benefit out of it. And that's what I did. So for me, it's thumbs up, and the experience has been, as I mentioned, quite enriching and quite fulfilling.
Great. And that example that you mentioned of coaching being introduced when you're at the cusp. So it's those turning points in life and in your career where you found.
Yeah. So basically, we keep talking about it that your competition is not with others, right? Your competition is with yourself. How you can become better as compared to that of the previous day. Now, and when we talk about that as a concept, essentially we talk about the potential of an individual. So if there is a potential, what are the mediums and mechanisms of the potential that can be tapped? Coaching is one such intervention, I feel, wherein your potential possibly can be tapped, which otherwise you may not even know that there is a potential that exists in you. And for me, yes, I mean that happened, and so I was fortunate enough to go through to get a coach, to go through the entire process, to understand that what it does to me, have that camaraderie developed. And the best part of it is that even after the coaching assignment, so-called agreement, gets done with, but your relationship with the coach, it carries on, isn't it? So any amount of, later on, any time, you can actually reach out to your coach. He becomes your buddy, and there is always a sounding block available for you to kind of bounce things off. So that's what I've realized. I mean, not necessary that every coaching needs to be under a contractual obligation, because that journey, which is a beautiful journey, gets extended more often than not times to a personal journey. And, from there, I think, the benefits are far reaching. And so that has been very transformational in my journey till now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Praveen, for sharing that very beautiful example. Okay, Kaurabi, may I invite you to share next? What's been your own personal story?
Sure. Sure, Tushima. I think um, the entire coaching experience started for me many years ago. And that time, I myself was not a coach. And I think in India also, coaching as a phenomena or a concept is still emerging. I'm talking about probably 10 years back, right? And as part of uh, the job that I was doing, right, I got coached by a lot of my you know, peers, a lot of my people that I was working very closely, or people that I used to report to. And what I really felt that you could call it coaching, you could call it training, because, as I said, it's still evolving, right? And I'm taking you back 10 years. So you could call it any name, but I think it really helped me evolve as an individual and as a professional. And I think as an individual and professional, these two things are very closely intertwined, right? So when you become a better version of yourself as a person, as a holistic person, as an individual, it reflects on you as a better professional, right? So I think I definitely experienced those benefits of coaching or mentoring or training 10 years back. And then I myself decided that I think it has given me so much, and I think I should also give it back to people. And as part of my job, because I was a human skills trainer, etc. So I think that gives you a lot of opportunity to be with people, right? And you're coaching people, and training and coaching again goes very hand in hand, right? And that's when I started coaching people. And finally, I think that became very important, that I think it's important to go through a certification. And that's when in India also people were talking about coaching, the ICF came in picture, etc. So for me, if I have to answer that question, Tushima, I think it has made me a better version of myself, right? And I think it's a time to give it back to others. And even today, I can tell you, I work with two different coaches, right? So I have always had coach when coaching was not really that well defined, and I still have coaches when coaching is, I think, little better well defined. And what I personally feel and experience, and that's why I work with two different people who have two different personalities because they challenge me differently, and their perspectives and insights are very, very refreshing and very unique. So sometimes with the help of coaching, I've realized that something that I thought that could be a problem about to me, it is actually not a problem when you have those conversations. So, and sometimes the solution that you're seeking for, with the help of coaching, you realize that the solution is sitting right under your nose. So I think that all of that has definitely helped me professionally. And as I said, professional and personal things are intertwined, right? Yeah. So that has been my little nugget on the answer question that you asked.
Great. Thank you so much, Kauravi. So I especially really liked how you described the intertwining of, the intertwined impact that coaching has on you as a person and as a professional, and your efforts to pay it forward and cascade what you have got. So it's really the gift that keeps on giving. Okay, I'm now coming to Venkatadri. Venkatadri, what's been your story with respect to coaching?
Yeah, Tushima, I think it is partly similar to what Praveen and Korvi also said, that at a point of time when I moved over to head a business as the CEO of a business, I was offered this almost 10, 12 years back, I was offered the opportunity to have an executive coach. And at that point of time, I should say that my own idea of what coaching is was not very clear almost 12 years back. So I said, but in my open way, I said, if there's something that is allowing you to help you, why not take it up? And I do remember that first time when my boss told me, I said, is there something wrong? He said, no. This is to help you to you're moved up one level, and your span of control is also become much bigger. So I think it's useful if you go through it. So he said there are three coaches, you can choose one of them. I spoke to the first one, and the first one happened to be Ram Ramanathan. And I found it very comfortable, so I told my boss, I don't want to see the other two people, let me go ahead with Ram. So that's how my journey started. So I went through a complete executive coaching program with him, and I should really say that that's the time when I also realized the power and potential of what coaching can do. And obviously, many of us, I don't want to use the word all, many of us have blockers in our head, what we can do, what we cannot do, what stops us from fully realizing our potential. So, in those 8 sessions that I had with Ram, a lot of my own blockers got removed. The second part is there that, like what Praveen said, the relationship continued even after the formal coaching session. So, it went on, and he was more like a friend, philosopher, guide. And at point of time, then Ram said that there is a why don't you become a coach? Because I do know that you have a flair for mentoring, coaching. Though after that I got to know what is coaching. So I then decided to take up the program and become a coach. And in 2020 I cleared my MCC, and there are some of the colleagues who are with me as part of the cohort. Nikhil Banerjee, I just noticed, Nikhil Benegal, who is there in this session also. We were all part of the same cohort. Now, what actually happened is there that what I would like to say is that a very critical thing is that when I went through that executive coaching, and then when I started becoming a coach, a lot of self-discovery took place. I think a lot of times we all expect that, when we become coaches, we will help others. But what one of the first things that came up is there that in the process of becoming a coach, I got a lot more benefited as well, because there is a lot of self-discovery and improvement that went on. And then, of course, post that, I have been, working on how to help others get into that. Now, for example, very recently, been able to kickstart a coaching program for our mid-level managers, a cohort of 25, and then we plan to take it across virtually the entire middle management. So that's something that we have been able to start off. So, translating the benefit that I got of being coached and becoming a coach, how do we help the larger organization get the benefit of it? So that's how my journey has been, in being coached, becoming a coach, and then helping others get coached.
Great. Thanks for sharing that, Venkatadri, and that last bit which you shared about training, or starting a coaching program for your mid-level managers. So I'm just filing this piece of information away, and I'm going to come back and ask you a question on this later on. Thank you. Very inspirational journey from being coached to becoming a master coach himself. Moving on, I'm circling back to Praveen. So Praveen, you spoke about your own journey and creating, this very holistic ecosystem within the organization. So my question is, as a CHRO with this wide and deep exposure and perspective that you have, in your view, what are the circumstances that are really required for coaching to be most effective and impactful within an organization?
Yeah. So, first of all, coaching as a concept needs to really get introduced in the organization, right? And it has to flow from the top. It just cannot be an HR initiative where we say that, okay, this is a part of leadership development or people practices, and there is something that is getting introduced. And, of course, it is voluntary to a larger extent. And if anybody wants to actually pick it up, they can kind of use the program that is available, right? However, until and unless as a concept, till the last mile, till the levels that you want the coaching to be introduced, if it doesn't get socialized in the company, I have seen that it may not really work. Okay. At times, what happens, I mean, without being prejudiced, it always helps in case if some of the senior leaders in the system actually go through a coaching journey. Not necessarily to be a coach, but it could also be that they can become a coachee. Okay. Once that barrier and that shackle is broken, once the so-called ecosystem realizes the benefits of the coaching, that's where I think the entire process, we could implement it in a seamless manner. So I actually faced it in my organization because I had to introduce this as a concept. So what I started to do is that I introduced coaching as a program to begin with to only top leaders in the company. Once we started seeing success out of it, I slowly started introducing that to the other levels as well. Because thereafter, the people who have gone through, they become your brand ambassadors. Okay, and it becomes easier for HR thereafter to kind of put it across, and there is more acceptance, and people are more receptive of this so-called coaching concept. So that was one. Number two is that the industry that we are in, it's a very fast-paced industry, which is I'm a part of life insurance industry. It's a very competitive industry. It's a very, very fast-growing industry. So there is a need for people to really think something which is very, very different, because you have to stay ahead of times always. But the other side of the story is that if you see most of the professionals, they would be a part of the same industry or would have been a part of the same industry for number of years. Now, if you have to introduce something new, as they say that there is an outside-in approach that is required, which you have to think out of the box, because of this so-called experience that people would have had in the same industry and same concept, at times I found that there could be more, what one can bring onto the table. And that's where, coaching really is, as I mentioned, is a tool which actually takes out your potential in a manner that is available. And thereafter, once you realize that what the potential you have as an individual, you are able to contribute far beyond what otherwise you would have done. So it was a slow process, and of course, I think Venkadri would talk about maybe mentorship and coaching much more in a very, very descriptive manner. But a lot of people actually started asking me, saying that why should I need a coach from outside, where I'm looking up to people from within the system? Can't they be my coach? So in a way, they were actually telling me about the mentorship program, not a coaching program. And, here was me who wanted to bring in an outside-in perspective. And I wanted to kind of tell them, saying that, yes, different people will have different leadership traits, but of course, your competition is you, and you have to bring the best out of it. And possibly a coaching will help you to get there. So again, for me also, it was first time, and I was going through the entire process of putting coaching as a part of the framework. I myself had got a coach because I wanted to go through that process. But having said which, now I introduced this in the company about 5 years back. Okay, about 5.5 years back, possibly. Okay. I can very, very confidently, tell you that now more and more people are actually aspiring to get a coach for themselves. Couple of other things as a process, when we introduced, of course, there is a chemistry meeting that needs to get set up with a coach. So I found a lot of individuals wanting to meet more and more coaches. So the selection of coaches was becoming very, very difficult. So they would meet 1 or 2 or 3, and they would say that, okay, can I meet somebody else? I don't know whether this coach will be good enough, etc. And there were some other individuals, as Venkatadri mentioned, that the first meeting, they select the coach. So I was very wary, saying that, okay, have you seen other coaches? Or is it that you don't want to meet anybody else? And just because to save time, you're saying that, okay, the first person who you met possibly could be my coach. So slowly and steadily, of course, we had, as I mentioned, we actually socialized in the company. And as we speak today, people understand the concept of coaching. They have got benefited out of it. Coaching helps them in terms of process like assessment center, etc. Because again, you kind of get evaluated on your competencies. And, it has really helped us as an organization. Proof of the pudding is possibly we are one of the fastest growing life insurance companies, and coaching has to do something to for us to get here. So that would be my experience, which I actually wanted to bring it up.
Fantastic. So it's almost like a testimonial to coaching, where the coaching journey and the organization's own growth story have happened together. And I really like the way you said it must have had something. I really love that confidence. So I have two follow-up questions, Praveen. So you said that it should come from the top. That's the very first thing that you said, and not just in terms of sponsoring coaching, but also being coached. Um, so from your own experience, how do you create that buy-in?
Yeah. So I mean, there's no, it's not one size fit all.
Right.
Fits all. So this is what I did. I introduced coaching for senior leaders in the company, stating that it's something that HR is actually providing you with. The company wants to invest in such a program, and we feel that you are somebody that who can actually get benefited out of it. And that's how when people actually experienced coaching, then the job was half done, right? Because thereafter they carried, they were the brand ambassadors, and thereafter they started talking about it, etc. And eventually, that it got cascaded down to the entire ecosystem of the company. So there may be different methods of introducing, but I felt that possibly this is a method which I can introduce in my company. It actually worked well for us, because many leaders became a part of the coaching journey. As I mentioned, coaching, and then they started talking about it, and their team also, they encouraged them to be a part of the assignment or the program. And we also said that, okay, this is not applicable to everybody. This is applicable to select few people who feel that they have the potential, and we want to kind of tap their potential. And the organization is ready to invest time and money and resources for that to happen. So it was, I mean, that's how it is. And yeah, it was taken well by people.
And the second thing that really stayed with me was you mentioned this latest trend of people wanting to meet more and more coaches. So, can you and the other panelists please demystify this for us? Why do people want to meet so many coaches, and what is it that they are really looking for?
Okay, so now, when we socialize it, one of the responses that we get is that does the conversation between the coach and coachee, does it come back to HR? Does it go back to my bosses, etc., etc.? Okay. And any amount of we mentioning that, of course, the code of conduct doesn't allow a coach to talk about it. And we, as a part of the organization, we just want to know that, what are the areas that the coach and the coachee is working on, right? Nothing else. Everything is extremely personal and confidential, and we don't need to know that, right? But when you meet up with your coach, there is a tendency that, can I share a lot of my personal stuff to the coach? Am I confident of sharing and thereafter walking in this professional journey to become better? Because it's no way that you cannot share your personal stuff and only practice professional stuff, right? By as a process, there would be a time during the coaching journey that you possibly will need to share, your personal, journey or to a certain extent, life journey, right? So people were skeptical and still are. Okay. So until unless, after meeting a few coaches, they become very confident that, okay, this is the person. I believe that I'm confident. I can develop a camaraderie with this person. I can share my personal stuff. That person will, act as a shadow to me, will help me in my growth. So these are all various thoughts that keeps going in people's mind. So at some point in time, I had to also put my foot down, and I said that not more than 4 or 5 coaches you can meet, and you'll have to select one among them. Okay. And a lot of filtration I've already done before, and you don't need to worry about it because that process HR has actually followed. And, trust you me that, all the coaches that you're meeting are the ones who have good credentials, and you pick any of these, I'm sure that you will have an exciting journey of coaching with them. So, but yes, I mean, there are, those set of people who would want to try more and more and more and more. But I think that's a part of human psychology, I guess.
Yeah, like a reinvented chemistry session. Great. Kodabe Venkatadri, any views, any different views to share from what Praveen was talking about in terms of getting buy-in from the top first, and on the new trends in coach and coachee chemistry.
Okay. Okay, I can go. I think buying from the top is a very, very, very critical component, right? Setting up a coaching culture at an out level. And to be very honest, I think most of you might agree with me that it is not really easy to bring in that coaching culture. And that's why our top leaders have to have to completely agree with the fact that coaching has been beneficial to them as an individual and as a professional, right? So many of the times it is definitely not an easy thing. And I think I agree with Praveen also when he said that when they themselves have been coached, the leaders, and they have seen the benefit, that is when coaching gets introduced. That's when coaching becomes one of the important pillars, right? However, bringing in coaching also needs a lot of influencers. So it may not be done by just one leader, right? Because you will also have to have a steer co committee where everybody is pitching in. So you, as a leader also, you will need to be a great influencer, right? It is not only that you have experience what coaching can do, but I think it's a very important component for a leader to be a great influencer. Not all leaders are great influencers, right? Fortunately or unfortunately. So I think that becomes a very big challenge that I've observed. Though people at the top, they have experience, they themselves are a certified coach, they may or may not be able to influence due to many reasons, due to the probably the relationship dynamic that they have with the business leaders or whatever maybe, right? So I think that gap I have always seen. So I think we will have to marry these two things. You could be a great coach, you have experienced it yourself, but you need to influence it positively, right? And I think those are the leaders we will have to take this case to, first of all, right? Um, and I also feel the other point which Praveen was mentioning, opportunity to talk to 2 to 3 different coaches and then picking what is going to work for the individual. In my experience, that has not been the case. What I've observed and experienced, I've seen that the coach is already being picked. 2 coaches are already being picked at a certain level by the leadership level, and then it has been decided that hey, these are the 2 coaches that we have. So the first 40 group is going with coach A, and the rest of the group will be going with coach B. So I've not really seen that options where a lot of options being given. What logic definitely works, a coach coming from an outside, because then the person from the from employee becomes very comfortable, because as part of the coaching conversation the person is also sharing a lot of information. So rather than having a coach from someone, an HR team or L&D team, they prefer someone who's coming from from an outside, because then they I think they are more comfortable, is what I've observed. Yeah, so these are just my 2 pointers, Tushima. Over to Venkatadri.
Yeah, hi. I think, see, this whole question about how do you build, how do you evangelize this whole concept of coaching?
Yeah.
There are a few points that both Corby and Praveen have mentioned, but just to step back, see, I think one of the big problems that we have is there that people are confused between coaching, mentoring, counseling. All the 3 of them people use very interchangeably. First of all, a lot of people think that, if somebody is being given a coach, that person has obvious problems and hence he or she is being coached. People don't realize that coaching is not, it's not the cheapest option. So obviously it wouldn't be given to everybody. So obviously it will apply for a chosen few. The second important part of it is that why is it that people tend to this mix between mentoring and coaching is there, that clearly I think mentoring is something that most people, most managers or even joinees go through, because it's typically about the company, it's about the profession, it's about the domain where you always have had mentors. So people tend to help out each other. The seniors tend to guide so that is something which is pretty well known within an organization, and most people think that what is it that coaching is going to do differently. It does take some bit of time for people to understand that coaching is much different than mentoring. Now, even in my own organization and my own, say, for example, TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, runs a huge coaching program, very large coaching program for a lot of its people. Similarly, the Tata Group started a coaching program for senior leaders across the company. They've already done 2 cohorts of 25 each. That also helped, and most of the people who were part of that program were reasonably senior people. So that also helped in many of the seniors going through the coaching program, understanding the value of coaching. The third important part of it, which kind of becomes a little issue, is there that mentoring is something you get to see the impact of the change. The person suddenly demonstrate more knowledge, because mentoring is typically about a subject or a skill. And one can see changes in that person. If it's about how to run a factory or something, that person learns about how to run a factory, or become a good data scientist or whatever it is. So easier. Whereas the point in that about coaching is there that it is more about human psychology, the way you behave with people, you understand your own things that block you. So the impact of that is also not something which people see very quickly outside people in, while the inside person tends to see it. And the other thing that also happens in many of these things is there that how do you make people comfortable to open up in a coaching session? Because in a mentoring session, it's easier for a junior to say that I don't know this topic. But in a coaching session, a person has to say that for example, I don't know how to deal with my team. I get angry when my team doesn't complete a job on time. Stuff like that have to come out, and many people are not very comfortable opening it up. This whole thing about while today world is talking about a good leader is a vulnerable leader, it's still not yet prevalent across the world. Most leaders would like to project that he or she is infallible. So for people to open up, it's something which is going to take time, and hence whenever a senior leader has gone through a coaching program, it's easier for them to evangelize and take it through the larger organization. The other part of it is that in terms of identifying or choosing the right coach, I think you know giving an option of, this is my personal view, is that giving an option of 3, 4, 5 coaches, it only complicates the life. Because see, end of the day, like I said, when my first conversation with Ram was there, it was a chemistry session, and I could pick up that there is a heart to heart. See, more than anything, in choosing a coach, or it's, I would say, I would not use the word chemistry. I would rather use the word biology, or what you say, that the emotions. I think biology is not the right word. It is, there has to be an emotional connect between the two, and if that happens, then the trust element comes through, and then I think then that is the right coach. Because obviously, in 1 or 2 sessions, one will never be able to get to know whether that coach is really a great coach or not a great coach. What is important is to feel, are you feeling comfortable sharing your thoughts? Are you able to trust that coach? I think those are the critical things that I have seen works. So, I would rather, like what Corby said, restrict the number of choices to people and then quickly move on with it.
As you were speaking, I could see there are a ton of questions in the chat box. So there is a whole other ecosystem that is getting created in the chat box if you take a look. But I see there are at least 2 individuals who have posed this question of which I wanted to bring in here is why not position coaching as something which is more of a reward? So offer it to either high potentials or those who are really seen to be your visible top talent, so that you send the right message and it becomes aspirational for everybody else. What do you think about that? Any of you would like to?
I would completely agree with that, because like I said, coaching is serious business. Second is there that while it's good to democratize and make sure that everybody goes through coaching, but you'll have to start somewhere. I mean, you cannot do it for 100% of the people. You start. So obviously, you would like to start with people who can have a larger impact on the larger organization. And so hence, starting at the top, starting with people who have a potential to grow into higher positions, or people who actually manage a large team and hence need a good capability of having an emotional quotient. So I would say that it's important to start somewhere and then slowly cascade and take it forward. And so hence it should be considered as a reward for good performance.
I'd just like to add here quickly, because we are just touching a very important piece
Yeah.
there, right? We're talking about high potential.
Yeah.
So we are obviously talking about our talent management practices, right?
Yeah.
As part of that, if you, for example, there are different talent management tools, but competency tools. But if I have to pick up a very simple tool, not very simple, but I think most of the audience might know about 9-box competency tool, right? That particular tool divides people into 9 typical boxes and categorizes people. And from there on, coaching plays a very, very crucial role, because coaching comes out all the time as one of the very powerful and impactful theme, right? For example, if you have to pick up somebody who's a high potential but low performer, right? The person has a lot of potential, but due to some reason or something that has happened, the person is not performing what was expected and what is expected from the person, right? So somebody who's a mid potential but low performer. So you have different categories in that 9-box tool, and coaching comes out as a very strong theme. And that is when I think, as part of talent management also, if you marry the entire so coaching doesn't have to become a separate entity altogether. It can definitely be part of the DNA of the talent management practices, which happens in many companies. Some companies do it very aggressively, and some companies don't, right? But I think this is a very good start. This is a very important and very logical way to introduce coaching in an organization.
Thanks, Gauravi, for weighing in on that. Praveen, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, just a couple of points. Just picking up from Purbi and Venkatadri. So what happens is that if you have experiences that if you introduce coaching in an organization, and let's assume there are many number of coaches to begin with, because let's assume the organization has decided to invest in them, then suddenly you will find that as a process, you will require more and more coaches in the system. And also what I've seen is that people keep asking me saying that, okay, this coach is coaching who all in the organization. Okay, and they need exclusivity. That's what I've realized. So there's, so I've heard these comments from people saying that, okay, if that person is coaching somebody, I would like to go for somebody else. And, and also the fact that if there are too many number of coaches, then the coach may not have the time. So by design, it happens that, you possibly will need to introduce more and more coaches. And once the ecosystem also understands that there are more coaches available to be met up with, then it comes back to you stating that, okay, I would like to meet up with more. Okay, so that's one which I have kind of experienced. The secondly is that, again, it is a catch-22 situation of where the coaching needs to get introduced, right? I mean, yes, it can be treated as a rewards, but if somebody is already in a hypo, the question is that, should coaching be introduced to that person, or should you introduce to somebody who possibly can get the best out from that person? So again, I mean, organization to organization, but as Venkatadri said, although personally I would like to do something differently, but I don't have a solution to it. But as a practice, because you can't en masse introduce it, if you were to introduce it, you possibly introduce it to, let's assume, certain level of performance or certain level of, let's assume, hypo individuals, and start it from there, and then see how you can actually thereafter cascade it downstream.
Tushima, I'm going to, another thought comes into my mind when I look at also the questions that people are asking about democratizing coaching. I would actually suggest that, see, there is, how do you actually manage the whole thing about democratizing the coaching? Obviously, if there are, a company has 500 employees or 1,000 employees, to be able to give 1,000 coaches is not, it's not easy in a place like us where, these things are, you don't have so many coaches to be also provided to them. What I would actually say is there that how do you actually, so I would say that have one-on-one coaches for, say, the senior people and the people who are at the high pods who are going to hit the senior levels. And one of the important interventions that is becoming more and more popular is to move into systemic coaching. So that, there you're able to actually take the whole team, maybe 20, 25, 30, 50, and then do that. So you can actually have a mix and match of individual coaching and then have systemic coaching. That way, you'll be able to cover a larger population much faster. And another important part of it is there that while till now we've been kind of focusing on one-on-one coaching, I think the power of systemic coaching has to be fully leveraged, because for the simple reason that if in an organization, if there are 1% of the people get coached, while of course even if they're at a very senior level, they have a lot of influence on the company. But for an organization to completely get that coaching culture and coaching mindset and move across, I think mixing also a systemic coaching would really help. I think that's what I would also like to bring to the table at this moment.
Great. So when you say systemic coaching, Venkatadri, are you um, are you referring to any specific modality?
Sorry?
Are you referring to any specific modality? Because you do have organizations today who build in things like group coaching within one overall developmental journey or leadership building model. So is that what you have in mind, or do you have something different?
No, absolutely. That is what I would have in mind. Like Corby also said, coaching has to be integrated with the talent management of the organization. I think, rather than look at coaching as
Great point.
a separate intervention, I think it has to fit in with the larger piece. How do you manage talent, retain talent, engage talent? So when you put it across as the comprehensive whole, then having a systemic coaching as part of the overall talent management and engagement process would actually fit in very well. And obviously, when we do the systemic coaching, it also helps in the cohort or the batch, which is when they also start learning how to support each other, help out each other, and make that transition. And all said and then finally, I would say that coaching, quote unquote, is more a human approach than an intellectual pursuit. It's more an emotional and the softer side pursuit than a harder side pursuit. So when we do it together as part of the talent management, it kind of helps the whole organization move up forward.
Great. I have two more questions to pose to the panel before we, actually move into the Q&A that's come in the chat box. So the first one is about the coaching, mentoring, the conundrum that many of you spoke about. So in my own experience, honestly, I've seen that a lot of my own coaches refer to the process as mentoring, and they do it with the utmost regard, affection, respect, whatever. So some of them would even refer to some of the coaching sessions as classes. It just slips out. It's probably how we have been ingrained, to look up to anybody who is in this kind of a position as a guru kind of a figure. So it's probably a cultural thing. So does it really matter whether the individual is referring to this as coaching or mentoring? What's your view?
Fine. I can go on this. See, I believe that as a coach myself, uh, when I work with people, while the purist in me would say follow the ICF guidelines to the core, follow the process, etc., etc. But see, our ultimate objective is to help the coachee. I think the client. I think that's what is important. And many a times the client or a coachee wants some bit of mentoring as well. So I've always believed that leveraging both coaching as well as mentoring kind of helps. I found that it delivers greater value. Many a times I found that rather than just restrict to hardcore pure coaching.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Praveen, Kauravi, do you have any alternate points of view?
I would really like to say that I think the point that you brought in, Tushima, that even study classes are called coaching classes. Tuition classes are also called coaching.
Yeah.
I'm going to coaching class, and I'm like, okay, which coaching? I mean, you are just 8th standard, so which coach you are? I have a maths tuition class. I have a math tuition class, and then the person, I have a coaching class. So the term itself is definitely confusing, and people keep using it or abusing it, I might say. So I think understanding is also at a little probably more than nascent stage. And coming to organization, there are, typically your mentor-mentee program that happens at an org level. It is typically for, when you want to work with somebody who's an expert in a certain domain. For example, in my experience, what I've seen in different organizations, that they do mentor-mentee program, they open it up to people, and typically they have a mentor who's been in the organization for a long time, like, tenured hand, seasoned hand. And then that person is matched with a mentee who's a new person to the culture, to the organization, right? So the conversation or the transformation which is expected from the mentee at the end of the program is that the mentee understands the in and out, the cultural fabric of the organization, who's and who of the organization, some of the very specificities of that particular organization, etc. So what I'm trying to say is it's the expertise in a particular domain. I think before Venkatadri also touched upon that, right? And vis-a-vis for coach, to be a coach, or you don't really need to be an expert in a specific domain or a technical domain. It is more about keeping the client's benefit in the mind. How can I ensure that the client becomes much better version of himself or herself as part of the entire coaching journey, right? And that indeed is definitely not an easy thing to get, because we are talking about, and today any second person that you talk to, they are a coach. I'm sure all of you are going to agree, and I see you're smiling as well. So I think somewhere that trust also we have to build with the organization. And I have burnt my fingers many times, brought in people who claim themselves to be an experienced in ABCD, but when we actually sat down and we did those conversations, we realized that the benefit is not what was agreed as part of the agreement, right? And because of that, those experiences leaves a very sour taste in the mouth. And then you don't want to take the risk of bringing, so what I'm trying to say is I think it's a very noble profession, and we have so many right now available in market. And at the same time, I'm saying that there's huge demand in the organization. Go to talent management, you will realize that even career mobility that we are doing needs a lot of coaching. People are moving from one function to the other function, needs so much coaching. Succession planning needs coaching. Leadership development and different layers of leadership development needs coaching, right? So you can imagine the demand is humongous, right? But are we able to meet that demand? Are we able to introduce the coaching the way it should be? The answer is a big no. And all of us are responsible in some way or the other, right? So I thought I'll bring that in as well. Yeah.
Great point of view. So it's easy to find a coach, but it's not that easy
Yeah.
to find the right coach.
Absolutely. Capital letters.
Great. Praveen, do you have a point of view on this? If not, I have another question to ask you. So
Yeah, I do have a point of view.
yes, great.
So again, this question used to keep coming up to me, saying what is the difference between a coaching and mentoring. So I introduced both in the company, and I had to socialize about it, about both mentoring as well as coaching. Of course, the primary differentiation in the organization was that we said that coaches will come from outside, mentors are in the system. Okay, now over a period of time, I realized that mentorship, it used to die down. Again, I had to reinvigorate it simply because of the fact that, of course, there was no commercial involvement there, right? I mean, there is somebody senior in the system, who possibly would be mentoring someone. And I wanted to eventually introduce something called reverse mentoring. But of course, I've not been successful, about it till now. And you set up a time, let's assume the mentor and the mentee, and suddenly the mentor says that there's some important meeting that has come up, and can we do it later? Possibly the next time also the mentee would approach the mentor and said that this is the time that you had given, but if that time if it again gets postponed, then it becomes very, very difficult for the mentee to reach somebody senior in the system and keep asking for a mentorship time, right? And after a few possibly a few months, you would see that the program has not really, shaped up the way it should have been otherwise, right? So there was a need for us to constantly reinvigorate that. And so we kept doing it, but of course, to a certain extent, the success has been muted. But with the coaching program, of course, there are commercial considerations involved. There is an outside coach. We clearly list down that what are the areas that the coach and the coachee needs to work on. We have also given the flexibility of the coach and the coachee meeting outside the office. And because it is introduced at an organization level, during that coaching period or the time, of course, the managers are not supposed to, call up the team member. And that time is exclusively provided to the coachee by the organization, which is essentially in the working hours of the company, right? So it's a company-wide initiative. So to that extent, yes, it has been successful. We had to introduce both and socialize it for people to understand the concept of both.
So that tells me that no matter what the intervention is, both sides or all sides need to be equally invested for it to work. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So my question, which is my final question, we'll begin with Praveen and then request Korvi and Venkatadri to also weigh in. So my question is on the benefits of coaching. So Praveen, what is your view on what the benefits of coaching are, and more importantly, how do you really realize or measure those or evaluate those benefits? What's your take on this?
Yeah, again, a very, very complex problem, actually. Okay, why I say that is because if you look at a coaching assignment, by and large, the behavioral competencies of an individual should or need, should get upskilled, right? And now, although, there is a tri-party agreement between, let's assume, the company, the coachee, the coach, and maybe the manager as well, where everything is agreed upon that these are the areas that the coach and the coachee is going to work on. And as an organization, it is very clearly established that if that individual gets upskilled in these areas which has got defined, then it will be beneficial for the individual and the organization. Good on paper. Till now, everything is superb on paper. Okay, once the coaching assignment gets completed, that's where the problem starts. Okay, I will not say it's a problem, but the question mark starts. Okay, stating that the manager may at times come back and say that I don't know whether I'm able to observe the changed behavior, from my team member. More often than not times to begin with, if it is a first time coaching assignment, the coachee would say, would be expecting answers from the coach, right? And during that journey, I mean, one realizes that coach is not supposed to give you answers. The answers reside in yourself, and it has to come from within, right? So that takes a gestation period, right? The third piece is the fact that there may be coaching assignments parallelly happening in the organization. And let's assume that somebody gets elevated to the next level. It gets implied that the coaching possibly has worked for that individual and not me, in case if this person has not got elevated to the next level, right? Then the question comes in saying that, is that coach better than the coach that I have taken? So the problem always seemingly comes from, is outside, not within. Okay. And if you actually then see an attrition, then the entire ecosystem comes back to you saying that, okay, you wanted to actually upskill the person. Maybe the person has got upskilled, but the value of that upskillment has not come back to the organization, or the person has got upskilled so much that somebody outside there has actually poached this person. Okay. So there are these questions that comes back to bite you. Okay. But end of the day, there are two things that the ecosystem has to accept. One is that, of course, coaching is something which is completely voluntary, right? The individual who is getting coached, it's not imposed onto an individual. There is a program which the organization is ready to invest in an individual. The individual should say that, yes, the coaching will benefit me. Once that acceptance comes in an individual, or it shouldn't be that, okay, yeah, somebody is investing, let me try it out. Okay, it really doesn't work. Okay. So if it comes from within, of course, you see a traction in terms of upskillment. That is one. Number two is the fact that those upskillment is never transformational. Whatever that upskillment happens, it's small, it's minute, and over a period of time, it gets built up. So if the ecosystem expects transformational change from a coachee, that's never going to happen. Okay. So the ecosystem should be accepting of the fact that, okay, there will be some, minute transformation or some small transformation, which eventually will result into the person actually becoming better and better and better. The ecosystem should be okay with that. Okay. So it's more of making everybody understand the nuances of coaching. It is more of everybody accepting the fact that, yes, it's an investment being done. The results may not be immediately to be seen. It will take some time. And eventually the organization should be ready to invest that kind of a time, more than the resource for the effect to be seen across the organization. So again, it's more of a culture building exercise at the top of people getting to know about the benefits of it, rather than exactly laying down the matrices on which the measurement can happen. Whatever matrices one puts in, that's what I have realized, that it can be questioned, right? So yeah, so that is something which I've experienced in for past so many years.
So if I can just borrow one question from the chat box which is coming. So, so the question is, if the ROI is not seen, then how will the company promote coaching?
Yeah, so there are a lot of measurement people put in. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying that the measurement people don't put in. One of the measurement, very clearly would be, let's assume if it's a manager, the employee engagement scores of the team, that could be one measurement. The second measurement is that, if there are assessment centers that gets undertaken as a part of the people processes, how the person has compared or done well as compared to that of the previous year. That could be number two. Number three is the feedback from the manager itself, saying that, okay, these are some of the areas that the individual has worked on. As a manager, have you seen any change? Number four is, of course, the individual or the coachee himself or herself, saying that, okay, where were you, let's assume 6 months back before the start of the coaching, and what do you think where you are now? So these are all measurement matrices that the organization will definitely put. But pragmatic approach being saying that, okay, you can put anything that you want, but end of the day, you have to see the results from a different lens altogether, right? And that lens is should be very evolved, very matured, and only then you will see tangible benefits of coaching in a long run. Otherwise, if you don't get a measurement, in the sense, if you don't immediately see some results, and if the organization is saying that, as Venkatadri actually started the session saying that mentoring, you can possibly see immediate results, but coaching, you may not see immediate results. And if the organization is saying that, okay, then if I'm not able to see immediate results, then what for I'm going to provide so much of a resource and time. It shouldn't just get shut down in between. So it requires that maturity and the involvement of everybody. It also requires evolution of the organization to be more accepting of this. Rest of the matrices, yes, everybody puts in. We are no different. That is at least some base framework to deal with. But what I wanted to say is that cannot be completely holistic if you look at it from a different lens.
Thank you so much, Praveen, for putting it in such a candid and compelling way, and laying bare some very real truths and considerations for us. Korabi, Venkatadri, anything to add to this? Otherwise, we will go into the Q&A segment. You're on mute. Venkatadri?
Purvi, you want to go? Shall I go?
Yes, please go ahead. I think I'll
Yeah.
add after we're done. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I think Praveen mentioned that very categorically about how do you see the benefit of coaching. And like I mentioned earlier, that mentorship you can see immediately, whereas coaching takes time. I'm going to give an analogy because many a times, an analogy helps say this. For example, if you are a very good musician and you don't practice for 3 days, you will get to know about it the fourth day. You know, the orchestra, the team will get to know about it after 15 days. And, the audience will get to know about it in 3 months. The same reverse thing, I'm going to say it for coaching, that when the transformation starts taking place, the first impact is the coachee sees the difference. That, I'm a coachee, I see the difference immediately. And then over a period of time, then my family sees it, then my team sees it, and then the organization sees it. So what actually happens is that, so the coaching happens, the change is seen by the individual first, and it takes, it's like a wave, it slowly goes and then hits the others. So it's important for an organization to believe in it and trust the process, that it would help in the longer run. But that level of patience is something which is required. Now, one of the important thing is there that we should also say that we keep hearing that many of the the global companies, whether you take Satya Nadella or any of those gentlemen, they all keep saying, Mark Zuckerberg, we also have a coach. So and they have so at least now what has happened because of that is there people have started seeing that, when such large organizations have benefited from a coach, and they've also seen it over a period of time. I think, people also would realize that it's a long gestation. I don't mean long gestation means 3 years, 5 years, but, one has to wait for at least some period of time to see the value of it. So one has to take the trust the process and then see the benefit.
Thanks. That's a beautiful analogy, and I can see that the audience definitely agrees with the comments which are coming in. Thank you, Venkatadri. Pauravi, anything to add?
Yeah, I think I'll just add, I'll agree with both Venkatadri and Praveen. All the matrices we keep measuring, in all the matrices that Praveen mentioned. I think something important, equally important, is holding the coachee accountable. Sometimes the way the coaching program is also sold in the organization, that if you have a coach, then you don't need to do anything. You just have a coach. The coach is going to do all the hard work. Where the accountability is, I think it's three-partite accountability. The first one is definitely coach and the coachee. The third person is here, the coachee's manager and the leadership team. So I think somewhere the accountability is, and if everybody is then speaking the same language and everybody is on the same page, I think that is when, and trust the process is what Venkatadri said. I completely concur with that. You can't be so impatient. Setting those expectations beforehand and saying that this is going to be a major accountability collaboration. It is not just one-sided, three-partite collaboration. I think that somewhere gets missed in the entire narrative. I just wanted to bring that to fore as well. Yeah.
Tushima, I'll just say one sentence that, the whole concept of coaching, the responsibility of the outcome is with the client, and the responsibility of making sure the process follows is with the coach. Most companies tend to think it's the other way around.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the difference that we all need to remember.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, we have, I think, about 15 minutes or so left. Sindhu, can you come in with the Q&A? I know there have been a ton of questions coming in.
Yes, you were right about an entire ecosystem getting created in the chat box, and it's so interesting to read the replies of our co-participants here. And quite a few questions, especially on the ROI measurement, and the metrics have been so comprehensively answered by the panel already. So we have that fewer questions actually. And even on who is a good coach and who is not. There was a question to the panel on that. I don't know if we have straightforward answers to that. But one question I would just like to pose here from Tarun Kohli is, what is the acceptance of coaching within organizations in the MSME sector vis-a-vis the large corporate sector? Do you see any major differences in these two?
I can respond on that. See, I don't see, even in very large professional organization, coaching is at a very nascent stage, quote unquote. And most often than not, we see these global practices starting from large organizations and then cascading to MSME. I think somebody's asked, what is MSME? These are micro, small. Okay, so, Sindhu has replied. So, for a small organization, a medium scale organization to invest in coaching, to understand the value of coaching, may take a little more time. But I have seen that some of the mid-scale companies are catching up on coaching a lot more than the very large companies or the micro. The medium scale companies, I would say, are realizing the value of it much better. I've seen that happen, in the ecosystem that I have dealt with.
There is also a question around the receptivity of the coachee. So how do you deal with a situation when the coachee is continuously not receptive? And as a follow-up question again from Tarun, if after all the investment, qualitative, quantitative that have gone into the coaching, if the coachee leaves the organization?
So who is this question for?
This is to the entire panel, I think.
So any one of us can take
and
it.
and I think there was a related comment from Meenakshi also that I saw, that sometimes it is an unintended consequence that the coachee, as a result of, may not be direct results, but comes to some realization and parts ways with the organization.
I think it while I was talking about, I mean, of course, Praveen, sorry if I interrupted, but I quickly wanted to add, I think I was talking about the expectations part as well, right? As part of expectations and agreement, it becomes very imperative to set those. And these are very actual ground realities, because you might spend so much time, effort, resources to coach a person or a group of people that we call group coaching. That happens a lot as well, which is, I think, very cost friendly in terms, because you're coaching together a team or a group. It as part of that, it goes in the agreement that if anybody leaves, then what happens? So different companies have different different terms and conditions. Some companies are okay with that. They believe that at the end of the day, we have helped an individual, so they don't look into so much nitty-gritty into it. However, there are companies who would want the person, the money gets deducted from the full and final settlement. So I think it varies from the culture of an organization to organization, right?
Can I also attempt this question?
Please. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So so couple of again experiences that I wanted to share. One is a fact that so there is an analogy there when the CFO asks HR head that this is pertaining to training, that if I'm investing so much of money and resources in a person, if the person actually quits and goes, what happens? So the HR head actually responds to the CFO saying that if you don't give learning and if the person stays, then you know what happens. So coaching is very similar to that. I mean, there could be a possibility that after the coaching assignment, the person actually decides to move on. But the fear of the person moving on after coaching possibly shouldn't be the factor of not introducing the coaching in the system. So that's one part. Of course, it has to be kind of dwelled down on that from the top. That's one. Number two is the fact that I've also seen that, yes, different companies, they put this ring fencing philosophies of in case after coaching, if you quit the organization within so and so period, possibly there would be a clawback. But I've also seen that it at times doesn't work in favor, because here you are as an organization telling the individual that no holds barred, we are actually ready to invest in you. That's much more a positive statement than possibly going ahead and telling an individual that, yes, we are ready to invest, but we are also expecting something back from you in return. So again, as rightly mentioned by Gurubi, different organizations, they follow different methodologies. We actually follow the erstwhile one, wherein we say that, okay, we are ready to invest in you. And we know that you're not going to leave us. And also, being in HR, coaching is just one intervention, right? If after coaching, if the person quits, then it actually, the introspection needs to happen from the HR side, that how is the other ecosystem, working towards retaining an individual? Do you have the entire ecosystem working in tandem along with the coaching for the retention to happen? Because coaching is one intervention. There may be many other factors, be it empowerment, be it reward philosophies, be it career progression, be it job fulfillment, enrichment, rotation. Many of the other aspects also should go hand in hand. So then the pressure comes back to HR to create that ecosystem. If at all, you see more and more coaches actually quitting the organization. So yes, I mean, it has to be a very thought through process. And I'm sure that when it flows from the top, all of these questions and these discussions and deliberations happen, and there's a conscious call taken for it to thereafter get introduced.
Tushima, I'm going to just add one other angle to the whole thing. That, all of us, when we want to join an organization, one of the things that we look at is that, is this organization a development-oriented organization or not? Okay. Does it give me opportunity to learn? Does the company give me learning experiences? That is a very big factor that people look at when they're joining a company. And like, for example, I remember in my good old days when I finished my graduation, I joined Hindustan Lever Limited. The reason was that I knew it was a great teaching organization. So the way I would look at it is there, along with many other interventions, today coaching is one of the interventions to develop people. So if an organization uses this intervention well, even though a particular person who has gone through coaching may quit, but it actually creates a much larger impact in the population outside, that this organization is ready to invest in coaching, and hence it would attract a lot more good people into the organization. So I would look at it as a investment for people building, and not worry about one person quitting just because he or she didn't like it after the coaching. So
great. Thank you, Venkataji. There was a question around that as well. Do organizations see coaching as an investment or as an expense?
So one request, if before we move on to the next question, could we have the feedback poll also launched? So you can respond to the poll, and we also continue with the Q&A.
Sure.
Can we have that? Yeah, and that followed by the CCU claim form as well.
Yeah.
Let's proceed. Yeah, go ahead, Sindhu. Thanks.
We have Francis Rebello who has raised hand. So
Yeah, Francis has
Francis,
hand raised for quite some time.
Yeah, I just want to, I just want to respond to Praveen over there when he said about that interesting exchange between the CFO and the HR head. In my coaching experience, I've had a rather strange experience of having a lot of my coaches leave the organization. It's been an unusually large number. And the reason is, in the course of the coaching journey, the coachee sees a new world altogether. The coachee discovers a new world altogether, and he sees that the present organization is not really going to be doing anything to allow him to explore that world. So he starts looking for another world, and he leaves the organization. So that is, and I see it as a qualitative metric of how good the coaching session or coaching journey is. So I just wanted to respond to Praveen that if the thing is good, the guy may actually leave. And it's a good thing as far as coaching goes. it's not a good thing as far as the organization goes.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
completely agree with you, Francis.
Yeah, thank you.
You. So there's a question from Bobby. Though Praveen and the others have talked about coaching being voluntary within an organization, there appears to be still some shame and inadequacy associated with coaching when one is picked up for coaching or is assigned a coach. So what can the leadership do about coaching being perceived as with a sense of pride? Venkatadri, you're on mute.
Yeah, I will.
Venkatadri, I asked the question. What I meant was, every employee says, I'm proud that I'm being coached. I've been selected for coaching. So that, it's not some, oh man, I've been selected for coaching from that. Sorry, yeah, Venkatadri. I also was in TCS.
No, I'll put it this way that, very recently in our company, I mentioned that we have launched a coaching programs for our mid-level managers. So when we had our kickoff program, one of the important things that we said is that when I spoke and then when my MD also spoke, both of us actually reiterated and said that both of us had coaches and both of us went through a coaching program. So this was to give the message to the larger organization that, when we are going through it, that necessarily means that it's something positive and not a negative connotation to be coached. I think that's the best way to explain it to a larger audience. Emotive response rather than a rational response.
Thanks. Any other thoughts?
See, just to further add, whether we like it or not, by default, it is shown as a reward only today. Because, of course, you can't launch coaching for en masse. So you select certain level and above possibly. You look at maybe potential and performance criterias. So, by design, by and large, I'm not saying it for all, but by and large, it comes across as it is given to only few select cohorted individuals who possibly can get this as an added platform or a benefit from the organization. So I guess that is not a problem as far as I see it today. But yes, different organizations may adopt different philosophies. By and large, what I've come across is it's offered to select few.
No, Praveen, the reason I asked this question was the conversation in the chat box that one of the coaches said that during my session with the coach, he got a call. He took the permission of the coach and then told someone, I'm in a training program rather than coaching. Then I started, even if it's such a senior CEO leader says I'm in a training program, obviously he's not proud about being coached. So that is the reason this question came to my mind at that point in time. It is in that context I asked this question.
No, possibly what I've also seen, again, without any prejudice, people would be thinking, stating that from the other side, whether the person would understand if being told that I'm in a coaching session.
Yeah.
So it's more to, preempt any further questions from the other side.
Maybe, but the point is, how do you then popularize coaching if you are in such a senior level?
Yeah. So it's typically within the organization is what people look at. So that, as I said, socializing needs to happen. People should understand the concept of coaching, and only then they can possibly appreciate it as it becomes a part of the ecosystem.
Thanks, bro. Yeah. Thanks, Sindhu.
Thank you, Bobby. We have covered most questions. Do we have time for one more or?
Praveen, Venkatadri, Korbi, are you okay spending a few more minutes with some more questions? Yeah, great.
Sure. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sindhu.
This a repeated question that has come in is, how do you define a good coach? Maybe what you can do is to flip it a little bit and probably state one attribute from your coaching experience that you thought was fantastic in your coach, maybe.
I think I'll try to answer this in my way, and I'm sure we'll be able to find the answer that the question that you asked. So finding the right coach as part of, my what I do on a regular basis. I have to work with a lot of different coaches, bring coaching at a workplace, right? And by and large, it goes through different filtering. So talking to different people, they have been referred within my network or people I already have worked with in the past, etc., etc. So some of the things which definitely didn't work, also I would want to touch upon, didn't work. Sometimes people were referred stating that they have huge experience in coaching, right? And the conversation itself, we keep talking about the ICF core competencies. So one of the important aspects is communication, right? It plays a very vital role. And um, I think some of the things that I observed, even if the person had certain experience in terms of credentials and certifications, so and it's a very specific example that I'm sharing, and wanted to bring on a coach, actually, not for executive level, but for mid management, and then build it up for senior leaders. And we were looking for the match, and some of the people that I spoke with, though they had some fantastic credentials, the first conversation that they started stating that I coach only CXO suite, right? I don't coach middle management. So if you are, if so that definitely put me. I mean, I was completely taken aback, because I think sometimes, which is also very important, is to understand where the client is coming from, right? And think from your client's head and client's seat. Sometimes we miss that, right? So had it been a conversation which probably happened in a different way, where the person would have at least listened to my request, what exactly we're trying to build, probably would have also done executive coaching. But my first conversation itself was with some of the coaches that know I don't coach middle management, it's only for executive level. So that was quite a put off. I wanted to bring that to this particular forum. That's real life example.
Can I also share my view here? Okay, just a couple of things. For a coachee, if your association with the coach transcends after the coaching assignment, that means, the coach possibly is a good enough coach for you to have a long-term long-term association with the person, even under individual capacity. Okay. From the organization side, unfortunately, okay, till now, I've never ever seen a coach turning down a coachee after the chemistry meeting is set up. I don't know why. Okay. I'm still waiting for that day that the coach tells me that, no, I don't think so. We are able to get along with the coachee, and I don't think so I can take up this assignment. Not due to not shortage of time or any commercial considerations, but just because of that chemistry meeting, not, let's assume, working the way it should have been. So I don't know.
I like the emphasis on the word unfortunately.
Yes, absolutely. Because the coachee also, I mean, during the chemistry meeting, of course, we say that, okay, if you don't want to coach an individual, you can upfront say that you don't need to do it. But I have not come, I don't know, some of you may have, but I have not come across of anyone like that. Although I've interacted and introduced a lot of coaches in my company, but never ever a coach has turned down a coachee.
Tushima, I'll just add 2 sentences. Is there that, while we have a lot of competencies as per ICF, I think the 2 critical ones, or rather I should say 3 critical ones that I always look out for in a good coach, if not there is a bad coach, is the ability to create trust, the ability to maintain presence, and the ability to have direct communication. I think these are 3 critical competencies that I would rate very, very high. And if a coach does not demonstrate any of these 3, I would put that coach as not a competent coach.
Thanks for sharing that rule of 3, Venkatadri.
The last question is, how do you see artificial intelligence impacting your coaching ecosystem inside the organization, if at all?
Yes.
See, I
We can't
I
have a session or a panel discussion without one question on AI at least. That's for sure.
see, I will go on this because within my company, I also used to look after digital, and so I do know some bit of the impact of AI and others. See, first of all, AI and many of these things now with Chat GPT coming in, etc. These are all very, very early days. The organization itself has not been able to leverage it for its operations. So, I think we must first allow AI to help operations and then look at how it can transform coaching. That's my personal view. We don't know. Technology can sometimes completely throw us off gear.
True, but then I think human touch or that human part that we kept talking about when we were talking about mentoring versus coaching, I think that is definitely a soft spot which an AI or a Chat GPT may not be able to really really change. So I think this is going to definitely be there. The only thing that we all have to look at, how are we changing the narrative, and and all the ICF core competencies also that Venkatadri just spoke about. Yeah.
What I see is, artificial intelligence actually complementing the coaches. For example, if Venkatadri or Kurubi is going to coach me, let's assume they have an app, okay, and suddenly it triggers off and say that here is Kurubi or here is Venkatadri. Praveen, you are supposed to do certain things. Have you done? Okay, and of course, those triggers possibly will help me to make sure that all the assignments that I was supposed to do during the coaching period, something gets triggered off, and then of course followed up with in-person meeting with, in this example of Kurubi and Venkatadri. I guess that possibly will be the way out in the near future.
Thanks. That's a very futuristic, forward-looking perspective, Praveen. Thank you. Okay, Meenakshi has her hand raised. Meenakshi?
Hi, thank you, everyone. I just wanted to share a perspective on that last question, the role of AI and generative AI. Actually, this was the topic of conversation that I had as part of International Coaching Week. Tushima, I'll share the YouTube link with you later. I'm in the process of uploading it there. So I spoke to a bunch of technologists, each of whom have a tech platform in support of coaching, and also spoke to a couple of coaches. And what we arrived at was what Praveen just alluded, that as much as AI can seem like a threat, one thing that threat for human coaches is that one thing that evolved is that uh, as much as AI can evolve or is evolving, uh, the biggest use of it can be only in what I call as transactional coaching, not the kind of transformational coaching that we generally talk about. And the second thing that came out was coaches and the technologists equally felt that people who seek coaching, they are looking for that human connection. They don't want another tool to tell them what to do. And the third thing was that technology actually has the potential to really elevate and amplify coaching the way it exists and really help individual coaches amplify their scale, their reach. Instead of, even if you're doing one-on-one coaching, what are you doing asynchronously with your clients? Similarly, if you're in a group environment, if you're an internal coach within a corporation, how are you able to maintain that high-touch environment with your clients? And that's where technology and prompt-based generative AI can actually come in. So these were some of the insights that I've gathered, and I was since this topic came up, I just wanted to put that plug in. Thank you.
Thanks, Meenakshi. So my own view on this is that yes, technology will evolve, and so will we, and so will coaching, and so will coaches. So I strongly believe in staying hopeful. Great. Are there any final questions before we thank our panelists? Sindhu, anything else?
We've taken all of them. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, we are more than 10 minutes past our designated closing time. Thank you very much. Kurubi, Praveen, Venkatadri, thank you so much for your generosity, for your sharing, we have so many takeaways from this session. I think among the three of you, you have touched on so many different aspects of what coaching can do for organizations, for individuals, for the larger ecosystem without and within a person. You have been so candid in sharing your views and have uh, really refreshed us with some very home truths, I would say, practical realities, as well as some very visionary, forward-looking perspectives. So thank you so much for sharing your own experiences, your own stories, and insights, and patiently answering so many questions that came in. Thank you so much to Sindhu and Nilima for putting this together. Three of us have worked so well together. We've had a lot of fun putting this entire session together. Thank you so much to our audience, to all of you for joining us on a Saturday of all days. We are
I
back
have
next.
Sorry to interrupt, Toshima. I have one question, one request. Can everybody get on camera so that I can?
Yes, yes. Okay, so you'll need to you need to unspotlight us so we can all take up the same space on the screen. Okay.
A small request if everybody could possibly switch on their camera so that we can have a good screen here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.